It's a motorcycle that's got tons of tradition tucked under its belt. It's got history and heritage richer than the Harleys. It served in the World Wars, sprinted on the salt flats, battled bankruptcy in the 1950s, and bounced back with a bang since Polaris purchased it in 2011. And this is the 2014 Indian Chief Classic. Polaris started from scratch and created the Classic in 27 months. It's a bike that's preserved its pedigree and comes kitted with modern bits. It's called Classic for a reason, though it's a 2014 motorcycle, but it looks as raw and as retro as the Indian Chiefs from the 1940s. Now, very quickly, let me point out the retro bits that this motorcycle has retained. For starters, the glass Indian war bonnet that sits proudly on the fender, and if you notice, the fenders are very flowing, very 1940s. It's also got classic vintage white wall tires which has got 36 spokes on them. And if you come to the engine, notice the fins, very 1940s. It's got parallel push rods, so the anatomy of the motorcycle is very similar to its ancestors from the 1940s. The Classic is curvy and comes covered in copious amount of costly chrome. The leather bits look good and the switchgear is top-notch too. Best bit, this bike is retro and radical too. Yes, it's got tons of tradition and heritage tucked under its belt, but it's also got a lot of cool technology. For starters, you get keyless entry, so this key could be sitting pretty in your pocket, and all you got to do to fire this up is hit the start button. And it's also got ABS and cruise control as standard, so it's not just about pedigree or old school charm. This bike comes with a lot of modern marvels too. The gas tank can gobble up to 20.8 liters of petrol, and the wheelbase stands at a lavish 2.63 meters. Now, if you go by the sheer size of it, it's easy to be intimidated. I mean, it's got a massive wheelbase and she tips the scale at 374 kilos. But I tell you what, the moment you saddle her and lift her off the stand, the weight seems to vanish, and it's not that tough to even move her around. And also I want you to hear what she sounds like. A lot more smoother, not like a Harley Davidson's traditional potato exhaust emission. This is a lot more smoother, and even the vibrations on idle are next to nothing. I mean, it doesn't vibrate at all. And powering this retro ride is a modern Thunderstroke motor. Now, the 1811cc Thunderstroke engine twists out 139 Newton meters of torque. On the move, it is pretty smooth and refined. And the good bit is, it's not going to overwhelm you with a ton of torque that it has. That instills a lot of confidence in the rider. In fact, the torque curve is pretty linear and progressive, which is a very good thing. However, if you're a little more lavish with your wrist flicks, this thing pulls like a lusty locomotive. Slot it onto the 6th gear and lock the RPM at 2500, and what you experience is pure therapy on wheels. The Thunderstroke motor is potent yet oh so polished. The clutch is fairly light and the 6-speed gearbox is spot on. Now, the gear shifts are smooth and precise to the point. Like any other big bore motorcycle, the gears engage with a reassuring clunk sound which is very characteristic. The best bit, however, is I haven't encountered a single false shift or had trouble hunting for the neutral, which, by the way, is a problem with Harley Davidson, but on the Indian, the transmission has been perfect. Telescopic front shocks with 4.7 inches of travel soak up all the bumps. Thanks to the dual disc brakes up front and the single disc at rear, the Chief Classic comes to a stop without any drama. The low slung stance will favor shorter riders, and the ergonomics are essentially cruiser-like. Now, the ergonomics are classic cruiser-like. You sit with feet forward design, and the flow modes, they got air cushions in them, so there is no vibration whatsoever you feel on the footboard. You got wide grip handlebars and a great view up ahead. At high speeds, this bike is pretty planted and stable, so this thing can munch miles from dawn till dusk, and you will not feel tired or fatigued for sure. But at slow speeds, this mammoth motorcycle will weigh heavy on you.
You get to feel a 374 kg heft the most at slow speeds while maneuvering bumper to bumper traffic or taking a slow corner. But then again, that's not a deal breaker because this bike was designed to cover continents and countries in style. You were not contemplating to buy an Indian to commute to work now, were you?
Since it comes as a completely built unit, the Classic is costly. The price you pay for its retro looks, the radical engine and handcrafted heritage is a princely 26.5 lakhs rupees ex-Delhi. So the big question is, should you buy one?
So why should you buy it? Well, it's got pedigree, it's got old school charm and it is an outstanding cruiser. That's not it. A lot of modern bits come in as standard equipment. So here's the deal. If you have a thing for big bore American cruisers and you're contemplating a purchase, I strongly suggest you saddle up an Indian before you settle in for something staple.